talking about the slime molds, which is a part of the eukaryotic microbes. So, slime molds. First is we have to define it. Slime molds is an informal name given to several kinds of unrelated eukaryotic organisms. It is a informal name because it is not related to eukaryotic organisms, but it is more on outside of the eukaryotic organisms. So we will talk about why the slime molds was not related to eukaryotic organisms. So we have to define it first. It is, as we knew, slime is a destroying rotting material. Example of this rotting material are those rotting logs. Rotting logs is those destroyed branch of trees that was called a rotting logs. These rotting logs provides damp shelter and food for many animals and plants. It is being decomposed for animals and plants. So it is found in soil and in rotting logs. Can also be found as for the water and land. It is being seen everywhere. So organisms held to be a lower fungi but sometimes considered protozoa or protozoans. Why protozoans? Because slime molds were formerly classified as both fungal and protozoal, but recently it has transferred out of the kingdom fungi and was placed in kingdom protozoa. Thus, they are not molds. As what I've said earlier, it can be seen everywhere. That's why it can live freely as a single cell, because slime molds is being composed of only or one single cell. So, how do slime molds live? Slime molds have a very complex life cycles. It is being called life cycles because as what for the word cycle, it is continuous. And it is initially starting as an amoeba and progressing to a multicellular organisms by the use of the aggregation process. So, we will talk about the aggregation process later. So, in amoeba, its life began is a amoeba-like cells. This is a unicellular amoebas that are commonly a haploid and can be fed on bacteria. As we define a haploid, it is being formed of another cell. One cell was formed another cell, and so this is the sample of a life cycle of the slime mold. So as you can see, it is a cycle because it is continuous, that we will be starting here up to here. Up to here. So, let's start with a single spore. So, this is a single spore. A single spore is a cell that has been produced by a slime mold. This spore grows and germinates through the germination process. As you can see, there is a germination where this arrow serves as the germination process of the spore, single spore that was produced by a slime mold. So as this spore grow and being germinated, that forms a sort of a cell, which is a single cell which can be classified as an amoeba. This one is an amoeba. Amoeba was being formed in here. This amoeba wanders around. So, when we say that it wanders around, moved, from here, it goes here and here. So as you can see, there is a 3 amoeba there. It is the first amoeba, but this too is the reflection of the original amoeba. It's just that amoeba was wander around and moved. So amoeba, as I was saying earlier, wanders around and moved, and amoeba eats bacteria. So these little dots that you see here, these dots serves as the bacteria. Bacteria, which is the source of food of the amoeba. So when the amoeba eats it, the amoeba grows up. It grows up and divides into 2 amoeba, which is the haploid, which is being processed by a haploid process. And sooner or later, it depends on the food. The amoeba depends on the food. If the food is really good, it makes a lot of amoeba. But they are all these amoeba that you see are all independent organisms. So when amoeba wanders around and eat whatever they find, however, when the food source, whatever they find, which is those bacteria that they find everywhere, so when the food source run out, the amoeba will starve. So as you can see, we have here the starvation process. When the food of the amoeba, which is the bacteria, when the bacteria was being eaten and has been ran out, then the amoeba will be starvation, and it gets really hungry. So the amoeba gets really hungry and triggers the charge of behavior. So amoeba first is a solitary organisms and goes to aggregate, which is the aggregation process. As you can see, we have here the aggregation. As the amoeba starve, it produces another one amoeba. When it was being like this as a whole, it forms to be little by little, and as the amoeba goes, it moves to aggregation process. When we say aggregation, it comes together or being combined with those other amoeba. So those amoeba that was being formed through aggregation process, that was being combined together, formed to be a loose aggregate, which is here. So this is where the amoeba aggregates here. So when they are being aggregated, it forms to be a loose aggregate. Loose aggregate in here, it comes here, fitting together and behave like a multicellular organisms. So when this loose aggregate becomes tighter and tighter, and more condensed, when the loose aggregate becomes tighter and tighter, and it becomes more dense, it forms a tight aggregate, which is here. Tight aggregate. So In a tight aggregate, after being tightened, the amoeba was being tightened, it forms a finger-like. It forms a finger and a slug. This is the finger and this is the slug. It forms a finger and the slug forms a dumpling. When we say a dumpling, it is the food that Chinese people eat, like that. The size of a dumpling food is like this. It is being formed on the slug of the amoeba. It was formed a dumpling. So this dumpling, as you can see, this is where the dumpling, this one, I'm so sorry for my drawing, I'm not an artist. So this is a dumpling, and when the dumpling has an outgrowth and becomes a sort of a glob-like shape that moves towards, when we say the dumpling outgrowth and becomes a glob-like shape, this is what I am pertaining to. This is the size of a glob-like shape of a amoeba. First is it forms a dumpling size, and then after the dumpling size, it becomes the glob-like shape that moves towards the fruity body of the amoeba. This is the fruity body of the amoeba, this one. As you can see, it is not formed as a fruity body, because that's what I've said earlier. So going back, this is the fruity body of an amoeba. So in here, it has lots of amoeba. So inside here, it has lots and lots of amoeba. So we have to put here. So, as you can see, the dots that I put it in here inside this fruity body is which serves as the amoeba. So, in this fruity body, as what I've said earlier, it has lots and lots of amoeba that has a stalk. So this is the stalk. This is the stalk, as you can see it, the stalk, and it anchors itself to solid surface. So this stalk serves as the solid surface of the fruity body. So, and this one is the spore, the head of the spore, which has so many amoeba that was being contained or contaminated. So after this, it goes it becomes the other spore. So when the fruity body, or which contains the spore, which is this head, and the stalk, which is this one, which serves as like a tail, when they was being formed with lots of amoeba inside here, it becomes again a spore. They generate or form another spore. That's why we go on to a continuous process. It becomes a spore again, and then as we go on, it goes circles around the process, undergo reproductive phase, and develop those spores. In here, as you can see here, this is where the new amoeba forms. So it has lots of amoeba. Few amoeba, when we say one whole of amoeba, so when we say in a container like, which is this one, inside here, which is this container, it contains lots of amoeba inside here. So when we say that it has lots of amoeba, half of the amoeba inside this container become spores and half dies. So the amoeba that is being contained here inside this container, not all amoebas will be alive when they are being formed. They was being half of the amoeba inside here becomes a spore and half of them dies. I was saying that was the life cycle of the amoeba. Oh no, the life cycle of the slime mold that starts the amoeba, that starts to a spore, becomes the amoeba to a multicellular organisms. That's why it is being called multicellular organisms, because one amoeba contains one cells. So if this one has a lots of amoeba, then it contains a lots of cell. So that's why it started here as a single amoeba to a multicellular organisms. And another learnings is that slime molds are not known to cause human disease. So humans doesn't get any illnesses or diseases from the slime molds.